Are you a mompreneur, whether you're in real estate or just an entrepreneur in general, and you're struggling with setting those boundaries when it comes to clients, but you want to service them and you want to be top of mind, but you need to also set those boundaries? Well, Karen and I spoke about setting those boundaries, the importance of it, the struggles that she's gone through, the struggles that I've gone through and going through, to really make it a priority to set those boundaries when you do have family, when you have a husband, when you have kids. So take a listen to this podcast. Let me know your thoughts, share your thoughts, let us know some of the struggles that you've gone through. And I know between her and I, we are happy to help you. In addition to, if you want to join her Facebook group or buy her book, we have that information in the links below as well. Hello, fellow mompreneurs. Welcome to the Real Moms Podcast, the go-to space for resilient entrepreneurs who are striving for abundant living. I'm your host, Shae Spitz, a mompreneur and a realtor here in Columbus, Nebraska. Are you a mom juggling the hustle of entrepreneurship, family life, and personal growth? Well, you're in the right place. On this podcast, we dive deep into the real, unfiltered stories of incredible women who are navigating the journey of mompreneurship. We'll celebrate the victories, share practical insights, and acknowledge that it's okay to face challenges along the way. Success isn't about the destination. It's about the journey and the growth we experience as we balance our careers and the chaos of family life. Whether you're a seasoned mompreneur or just starting on this exciting path, join me and our amazing guests as we explore what it truly means to be a resilient entrepreneur striving for abundant living. Get ready for real, raw, and remarkable conversations that will inspire and uplift you. Because here at the Real Moms Podcast, we believe in the power of community, authenticity, and the strength that comes from embracing the journey together. So grab your coffee, find a cozy spot, and let's dive into the world of mompreneurship. This is the Real Moms Podcast, where we celebrate the hustle, honor the struggle, and thrive as resilient entrepreneurs living abundantly. Welcome to another episode of Real Moms Podcast. I like to start every podcast off with a motivational quote, and today's quote is, "Don't take advice from someone you wouldn't trade places with." Karen Cooper is a wife, mom of three, and the co-owner of Platinum Group Real Estate Team at Real Brokerage, a powerhouse all-woman team serving clients nationwide. A licensed agent since 2002, she has personally helped over 700 clients and led her team to over $1.8 billion in sales since 2015. Karen is the founder and CEO of Empowering Women in Real Estate, a thriving community of 39,000 plus members and host of Empowering Women in Real Estate, the podcast. She's also the author of Empowering Women in Real Estate, a collection of stories, and creator of the EWRE, Inner Circle Coaching Program. A passionate real estate investor and speaker, Karen is on a mission to help women build successful real estate careers without sacrificing their quality of life. Everything about that, Karen, is, I feel like, what I am also trying to do. So this is amazing that you are here. I may have missed something. I think maybe there's something with the on my document. Is it EWRE?
Well, that's just abbreviation for Empowering Women in Real Estate. So our Inner Circle is our group coaching program. But yeah, that's all a mouthful there, actually, when you kind of read it all out loud. So thank you.
And that was the condensed version.
Oh, that was the short version. I know. Thank you so much. How do you take a 23-year career, right? Really, I'm getting older, so I think about this a lot, right? How do you take I'm almost 52. How do you take a 52-year-old life and you shrink it down? This is getting morbid, into your obituary. How do you hit the highlights? And because we're all, and I'm sure we'll kind of talk about this, but we are women, we are moms, we are very passionate about our careers and serving other people. And that's a lot of things. And I feel like the world wants to try to put us in one box or another. And when you are multiple things, right? When you're multi-passionate, it gets a little complicated, and it becomes a mouthful, like what you just read there.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it did a very well job on condensing it, which I know you have so much more in your life than what this says. But tell me a little bit about where you started, how you got into real estate, and what was it like being an agent, raising a family, but then you've also gone through some really pivotal times in the real estate world over that, 20
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, it's been a journey. I started out 23 years ago, and I often say, but like my instinct is to say, oh, it kind of happened. I got into the industry by accident, but of course, it was not an accident. I was working in the pharmaceutical industry. I was doing project management for patient registries, and I was getting laid off. And it was, I'd been laid off before. I had kind of come to that point where I was realizing, like, okay, I'm either going to have to relocate to, where I live, I'm in Northern Virginia, is not the hub for the pharmaceutical industry. I can either relocate and continue working in this field, or I can do something different. And it just so happened that my then fiance, now husband of 23 years also, we were buying and selling a house for sale by owner. And I was the one who was kind of directing everyone through it. I got the contract template from the title company. I was explaining it to all these people, and I didn't know any more than they did, but it just kind of felt normal and natural to me. And so when that realization came to me that I either need to move or I need to do something else, I was like, you know what? How about that real estate thing? That seemed kind of fun. And so 23 years later, here we are. And so when I started out, I like to say that I've kind of held every role there is in the industry. I started out on a very traditional rainmaker style team, which was, I learned so much. It was really kind of trial by fire in that sort of environment, but it really set the foundation for the career that I have now. I've been a solo agent. I've been part of a marketing team. I have been a managing broker. And then now for the last 10 years, I have been a team leader. My business partner, Vicki, and I are the owners of the Platinum Group Real Estate Team. We are an all-women team. There's 50 of us. We are spread out into 16 different states. And we sell a lot of real estate. We served 363 families last year. So that's kind of from a career perspective what that looks like.
That is amazing. So 10 years ago, and then you've been kind of out of production for the last 5, is that right? So how have you done that? Is that just through building a team, or do you have people who kind of work underneath of you? How does that
Mhm.
work?
Yeah, I'm really passionate about this subject because I think there's a perception in our industry that you either are all the way in it or you're all the way out of it, and there's no middle. And exiting is difficult. I have not been in. I shouldn't say production. I produce. Already this year I've produced more than 10 million in sales volume that is closed or pending. I just don't serve the clients myself anymore. So part of what I do every week is prospecting. So I prospect in my personal sales business every single week. I generate a lot of leads. I generate a lot of referrals, and then I refer them out to the agents on my team who then service the clients. And it really is like a win-win-win all the way around, right? Because I know my clients, the people I care about, are really well taken care of. I'm providing an additional income stream for the agents on my team, and then I'm continuing to be financially rewarded for the work that I've done over all of these years.
Right, kind of being that person of influence essentially is what you're doing. So that's interesting that we're having this call because I've kind of been wanting to kind of lean more towards that. Not get out obviously entirely, but it is a grind, especially when I have 3 little ones at home. Weekends and evenings, that's where a lot of the open houses and showings are like um so how do you have that structured when it comes to, like, are these other agents basically working on your behalf and you're still the agent representing them? Or is it you're giving them the referral and then you're just taking the referral?
Yeah, so I have no, I really kind of, it took me a while to get to where I am right now with this. In the beginning, I was a little bit more involved in the process when I was referring the business out, but now I just completely refer it out. If it is a listing, then we do what we call a co-listing, where it's my name on the sign. My name is first in the MLS. My partner's name will be the alternate agent. But we're both on the brochure and things like that, just to help me to keep that presence, because a lot of my business is done via geographic farming. And so it's important that I continue that presence. But otherwise, I just pass it completely off to them. When it comes to the buy side, they're doing business completely in their own name. It's just a lead that I've given them. And then we do a 50-50 split on that. That's the agreement that we have.
Right, gotcha. Okay. Because see, the way I'm looking at it, or what I'm kind of like toggling with a little bit, is I have an agent who's going to be coming on. She's a newer agent, so I know I'm going to have a lot of legwork with it. I also have somebody else who her license is inactive. She was an agent a long time ago, but she doesn't like being like the front and center. She doesn't like being the face. She doesn't like doing all of that. So I'm trying to figure out, like, I'm fine with doing all of that and being the face and well known, because I'm very well known in the community. I was top agent last year and this year in our area. So keeping that presence, like you said, is also very important. But I'm trying to figure out how could we do this to where it's still all under me, but he's handling it all. Like
Yeah, so you're probably going to start from a buyer perspective, right? Because I feel like that's the easiest.
yeah.
So she's probably going to be the one who is showing the properties for you, doing, going to the inspections. But then maybe when you start this out, especially if it's a newer agent, you're going to keep that client relationship in terms of you're going to write the contract, or maybe she's going to write it and you're going to review it. You're going to do the negotiations so that you're kind of training her along. And then as time goes on, this is kind of what I did, then you get more and more comfortable to where you're just kind of passing it off completely. From a listing perspective, in the beginning, I retained all of the marketing responsibility and part of it is a trust thing too, right? We are used to doing things a certain way, and it's hard to let go. And so in the beginning, for the first, couple of years that I did this, I kept all the marketing, all the expense. I paid for the photographer, I ordered the photographer, I ordered the sign, I did the transaction coordinator, like literally micromanaged it, but the agent took care of, running the comps, being responsible for the open houses, having the one-on-one with the client. And then over time, I realized, like, gosh, if I'm going to trust these women on my team to take care of my client, I can trust them to market the property the right way, right? And so it's kind of you evolve into this.
Right. So then do you do like a 50-50 referral and then they're taking the client, or how do you typically structure that?
Yeah, so we do a 50-50. And then as far as client relationship is concerned, we have an agreement in our team agreement that basically says if that person does another transaction within 12 months of the first, then that's also considered a team lead. So that will also be considered a 50-50. And then after that, if that person contacts them or obviously refers business to them, then that becomes their personal business, their personal split. That was something I learned from the first team I was on when I was on that first Rainmaker team. And those teams can be brutal, and it can be a revolving door because you don't make a lot of money as the agent, and so you have to do a ton of volume, and so what would happen over time is people are calling me directly. They don't even know my team leader anymore. They have no relationship with her, but I'm literally making pennies on the dollar, and it would stay that way forever. And when we built this team model, we knew we wanted something different. We wanted to specifically attract agents that were independent thinkers, independent marketers, people who were experienced. Our agents actually average 10 years of experience each. So we have a lot of really experienced agents. And an agent who can do this business on their own, who's been around for 10 years, they're not going to stand for that, right? And so we want to honor that. And so because of that, it becomes their lead. Now, I still market to these people. If they contact me first, then it's the team lead again, and I pass it out again. But if they contact my team member, then you know what? I'm really proud of them for doing the right thing and staying in touch and nurturing them all that time so that they felt comfortable in contacting them.
Right. And I think that's where a lot of agents fail, is they get to the closing and they don't follow up. Like, I've done a very good job at following up. Like last year, my transactions was 76% repeat referral. That's where 76% of my transactions came from. The year before, I think it was like 60, because I've always stayed in touch and on top of following up with my clients. I have them set up on drip campaigns, postcards, newsletters, things like that, in addition to emails, and then trying to touch base with them via text or phone calls every now and then, and client appreciation events. So, but yeah, I mean, like that's where it's easier to convert somebody who is a referral. So like I have a listing appointment today that was a referral from somebody that I sold their house years ago, and but it's easier to convert those, and the cost per lead is actually a lot lower, even though you're doing client appreciation events, even though you're doing newsletters. The cost per lead is significantly lower, where average of online leads is like $500+.
Totally. Yep. Yeah. So, and you need it's like 1 out of 100, right? It's like a 1 to 2% conversion rate, maybe 3% if you're amazing with online leads, For the team leads that we give to our team members, it's like a 35% conversion rate. So it's a completely, when you do business in this way, right, the way that you and I do business, it's just you're playing on a completely different playing field, right? It doesn't even compare.
Right, exactly. It is. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, I'm looking to not only help these other agents, but also be able to like delegate some of that time. I have a transaction coordinator, I have a marketing director, which I think I'm shifting that to like a VA. So just a lot of changes, and it's a little uneasy. You know, you want to make sure you're on the same page with everybody, and you don't want to like offend anybody or hurt anybody because you do build those personal relationships over time. And it is tough. I mean, honestly, like when I first moved over to EXP Realty, I was having my husband do a lot of the like transaction side, the paperwork side of things. And what was really hard, honestly, is firing him and hiring somebody. Yeah, I know, but I did. I ended up like
Yeah,
it kind
probably
of
better for your marriage. Yeah.
yes. Well, not only that, but like there were just things that he couldn't do. He was a licensed agent, but he wasn't with EXP. So there were just a lot of things that he couldn't do that I was still having to do. And I was like, it just doesn't make sense. And so that was a little bit tough that I just kind of, but it was the best thing. And that's kind of like this next step that I'm going to do is like, I have to work this one relationship out so I can move it on to the next to help grow and scale my business. But it's not always easy. You want to make sure you're on the same page. I don't want to hurt anybody. It's a whole thing. Sure.
Well, you're not. I mean, here's the thing. Like it's our careers are meant to be an evolution, and I don't think. And I think as women, we see this more clearly because when you raise children, right, you see very clearly the evolution of the seasons of our lives. And our real estate businesses have the exact same thing. It's just nobody really teaches us that. And there's kind of these traditional boxes that we get put in, like maybe you're on a team and then you're a solo agent, and then maybe you create a team or you open your own brokerage, and like those are the boxes. And we don't need to be in those boxes. We can actually, you and I are talking on a podcast. I have a podcast. I write a book. Like there's a lot of things that we can do related to the real estate industry that allow us to, we're just kind of evolving through our lives and through our careers. And that is actually just the most amazing and most beautiful thing. And that is what really excites me about the work that we do.
Right. That's what I love about real estate too, is like there's always changes. Like and sometimes it can be very stressful and overwhelming because if you're not adapting and changing, you're not growing and you're gonna get left behind and like in the dust and stuff. So sometimes there's a little bit of a stressor to that. Like you gotta keep it up with like everything else, if not stay ahead. So there is definitely stress to that, especially that's just entrepreneurship in general. You have to have that mental toughness. We have one of our really good friends finally went on his own and he's doing like this business. And I think reality of being an entrepreneur, even though it's only been like 2 weeks, is really sinking in. He doesn't realize the mental toughness that it takes, especially when you're starting out. Yeah. So Karen, tell me a little bit about like what that process was as a real estate agent and as a mother. Have you had challenges growing up, not only between you and your kids, or what about like your relationship with your husband? How has that, or has it been perfect and no issues ever?
Yeah, never. So my first son was born, let's see, I got married just a few months after I started my real estate career, right? And it's interesting because I actually did a podcast episode a year and a half ago, and it aired on Valentine's Day where I interviewed my husband. And it was very interesting to hear his point of view, especially, there was a period of time in my career kind of early on. My first son was born a year and a half or so after I started. I had not quite been licensed for 2 years when my first son was born. And then, very quickly, I had 3 kids under 5, very active agent, averaging 50 to 60 transactions a year. My husband's a firefighter, so he was on shift work, so not a lot of help there. So it was there was a period of time that was extremely chaotic, and I actually found myself burning out. That's how I ended up becoming a managing broker after I had been in business for a little over 10 years, because I completely burned myself out because I did not really have boundaries. And I knew I wanted to be, there was a certain way that I wanted to be as a mom that was important to me in being a present mom. But I'm also extremely driven, and I really had a lot of goals for my business. And those things, it's hard to, I don't think we're taught. I was not taught. When I started in business, I did not have mentors for how to be the mom I wanted to be, and then also how to be the career woman that I wanted to be. The women that I saw in my brokerage, either they had no kids, or their kids were long grown and gone, or they ignored their kids because they worked literally around the clock, or they, were more focused on their kids, and real estate was kind of like a hobby. And none of those things resonated with me. And so I really, it was important to me to try to figure out a way to do it myself. And so putting boundaries in place is really a lot of what I learned and how to make it work. It's not been perfect. And when I interviewed my husband, he kind of shared about some periods of during that time where, he was frustrated with me. He was frustrated with the business. The phone was permanently attached to my hand, and I had no issue. We're all at the table having dinner, and the phone rings, and I would just jump up and answer the phone. And the reality is, people can wait 30 minutes for you to finish a meal, right? What we do is not life or death. It is very important. There are often very time sensitive deadlines, but it's not life and death. And so 30 minutes, can wait for you to finish that call, or 15 minutes can wait for you to, my middle son, who's in college now, his kind of routine is every day when he would come home from school, he would come and sit down on the couch in my office. And sometimes he would talk, and sometimes he would just sit there and, kind of look at his phone. But like, I needed to be present. Like I needed to, I could turn off the computer and stop with the notifications for 15 minutes while he's sitting in here, in case he wanted to talk, right? Because that time goes really quickly. So yeah, I've fumbled through that quite a bit.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the growing pains that we're going through too right now, my husband and I. And we've gone through it, and then it gets better, and then you kind of go through it, you kind of fall back into your ways. Yes, it is. And because I'm the same way, like I don't answer when we're eating or anything like that, but it does, it is pretty much attached to my hand even in the evenings. And I need to start setting those boundaries, and very specific boundaries, that, okay, from like 5:30 to 8:30, like that's my family time. That is my time to be present with my kids. And again, like I've gone through this multiple times, but now it's to the point where, hey, this is really important to not only my marriage, but also my relationship with my kids. And I have to make it a priority. We're so reluctant, or it's so easy to make work a priority over family when you get wrapped up into this. Because I feel like I'm a lot like you. Like I want to be this amazing mom. I want to be present, but I also have such a drive in my business, and it is like a pull, um, constant pull. And
There, there's discipline that is required on our part to not only put boundaries in place, but to hold the boundaries. I was just talking to my business partner about this yesterday. She has 3 sons also. She just left for vacation. She's got a lot of business right now, and she's worried. She's feeling completely burned out, and she needs a break. And I was lecturing her, like, don't respond to the text, right? You put a plan in place. You have someone who's covering for you. The minute you respond to a text thinking this is just a quick response, you have just been brought all the way back in. And so, it's okay. What I have found in my career, and it takes confidence, right? There's confidence required to put the boundaries in place. And those boundaries, they make you better, right? They make you better in terms of, I am not going to do good for anybody at 9 o'clock at night. Like, there is no conversation I'm going to have with anybody at 9 p.m. that is going to be a good conversation. And, when you can establish some expectations with your clients, people, they're not going to question you. And if they are going to question you, or they are going to insist on that, 10 p.m. phone call, they're not your people. And it's okay. It's okay to say bye-bye now, and focus on the people that you can serve in the way that you can serve most effectively. And people aren't going to question you. They're going to respect your boundaries, but you have to respect your boundaries and have the confidence and the discipline to uphold them.
Right, I would agree. And that's one of the things that, like, when I'm going to listing appointments or working with buyers, I'm going to start putting in there, like, hey, typically between 5:30 and 8:30, I'm not available. I'll check my phone again before I go to bed. And if there's anything urgent, like I've had to jump on a call at like 9 o'clock at night to write up an offer because it was either 9 o'clock or 6:30. Okay, well, I'm going to choose to do it when my kids go to bed. And then I can focus a little bit more on my clients too. So I've done that, and I'm fine with doing that. My husband's okay with that. I also am tired by that time, and I really like my sleep. So sometimes I try not to, but you kind of have to meet with your clients where they're at though too, because sometimes, they can't jump on a call during the day, that they don't get off until 6. So it's either going to have to be between 6 and like 9 or 10. So,
well, there's always those exceptions, right? And I think it's also understanding your clients. When my kids were really, really little, when they're babies, I kind of had and at that time I was, every day it seemed like I had appointments, either listing appointments or showing buyers. And so I kind of had a rule with myself. And my rule was I was not going to miss, when they're little, that bedtime, bath time routine is really precious.
Yes.
And I was not going to miss it 2 nights in a row. So I knew that, if tonight I'm going to have to miss it because I have a listing appointment, whatever, I have to show a property in the evening, but the next night I'm not going to be available. Right. And so it's okay to put those rhythms in place.
Right. Yeah. And setting those boundaries, it really does make a big difference, because especially as a real estate agent, I'm sure medical field is like this too, but you have to set those boundaries for burnout, and then also for your family. And you realize, like, if you ever get to the point where you're close to like, hey, this isn't working, like, it's a matter of perspective, and everything kind of gets brought to reality, and you realize what's actually important. And then that's when you're willing to make the sacrifices at work. But it's also keeping that so you don't fall back into your old ways, and having transparent communication with your spouse that, hey, like, if you see me falling back into my old ways, like, please bring me out of it, because I'm a very driven person that I may not even realize it. And maybe that sounds silly, but I need him to say, hey, babe. And it's all in their approach too, because him and I were talking about this. Like, when he gets annoyed, he'll say, hey, cheetah fingers, what are you doing? And so then I instantly get defensive and annoyed, and it doesn't work, but it's all in the approach. So one of the things that we talked about is like, hey, if you see me on my phone and it's starting to irritate you, I want you to say, hey, babe, I get very frustrated. I feel very distant from you when you are on your phone, and I really need you to be here with the family. Totally different things. Different conversation versus, hey, cheetah fingers. Like, so it does make a big difference. But yeah, I find it interesting that what you've kind of gone through is also what I've gone through, and I'm sure many others have gone through it, because it is a tug and pull with being a mom and running a business.
Yeah.
It really is. It can be tough. It can be tough.
For sure. And it goes so quickly. My oldest is about to be a senior in college, and my youngest is getting his driver's license in a few months. Like, it's insane how quickly it goes. And I think we think when you're in the thick of it, when I had the 3 kids under 5, or everybody's in elementary school, and we had practices every night and games every weekend, and I'm trying to work the clients before and after the baseball game, and you think it's going to last forever. It feels like it lasts forever, but I'm here to tell you that it does not last forever, and it is going to go a lot faster than you think. And when you're 80 years old and you're looking back over your life, I know for sure that I'm never going to regret that I'm not going to say, gosh, I wish I sold 10 more houses. I wish I was number 1 like 3 more times. I'm going to say, gosh, I wish there was another little league game I could go to. I wish we had that one more vacation where I was, present and building sandcastles with my kids. You know what I mean? And so I try to keep that, I think age gives you that perspective. And as I'm getting a little older, and some of the things that I've had to experience have taught me that and reminded me of how important that all is. And so keeping that thought first is hard, but important.
Right. It's very important. One of the best things that, I don't know if you have an iPhone, but the best thing that an iPhone just created and came out with is the send later text.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes,
Like,
indeed. That's right.
A game changer. Like, I have a client that I'm ready to fire. I think he's ready to fire me. It's a seller. Like, and I keep reminding him, like, hey, 100% satisfaction guaranteed. You can get the contract at any point in time. He's just way overbearing. When we talked about it, I said, do not make an offer on another property. It's in another state, not contingent upon your house selling. The market here has shifted. Things have slowed down. Well, what do you think he did?
That's what he did. Yes, of course he did. Yes.
Not contingent upon his house selling. They've already closed on it. He's going to have 2 mortgages now. And whose fault do you think it is?
It's your fault. Yes, of course it's your fault. Yes.
Yep. So it's of course my fault. So he's brought this up to me many times, and I've reminded him very kindly that he can get out of the contract at any point in time. No fees to him. And then he, just constant. But he was texting me like early in the morning or late at night. And I've been very adamant about, like, I'll respond, but I send it for the next day or after a certain time. Because, like, I also like to give myself time and not respond to something right away, because I need to, like, hey, like, it's whatever. It is what it is. Like, if he wants to walk away, I'm close to, like, canceling the contract, but whatever. I don't even care. I'm busy enough. I don't need another
You don't need it.
espresso.
Well, and it slows you down. And, I love those send later things with email and text, because the thing is, sometimes the reality is we are maybe catching up a little bit late at night. But the minute you send that email at 11 p.m. or you respond to that text, you have taught them, oh my gosh, this is a great time to get in touch with her. Look how fast she responds, right? And so, no, you have to. That's where that discipline comes into play. I use Do Not Disturb now on my phone. It goes on at 9 o'clock, and I'm not even going to see it. I'm not even going to see it till the next day. And with that seller, our thing is when especially sometimes you cross that boundary with the disrespect, and especially when they're not taking your advice, and we send a listing withdrawal and say, so sorry, happy to share your photos with your next listing agent, but this is not going to work anymore. And goodbye.
I'm just like threading. I'm just like skating on that line because part of me doesn't want to, because I do have a lot of time and money wrapped up into it. But I mean, it'll sell, but I think it's me. I'm gonna be a lot more strict on those boundaries, and that text and send later, because I get up early in the morning, so my mind is constantly going. So I can nobody wants to text at 4:30 in the morning. Nobody wants me to send them a text. But if I'm thinking about it, I can send it later, and it's amazing.
Yes, yes. Well, and what is it, when you have that client like that, it's what is it doing to you? Because, there is this sunk cost, right? We have expenses, we have time that's wrapped up into it. But what we don't take, we're so afraid to miss opportunities. And I think what we take for granted too much is the mental load, right? The weight that those kind of client situations can put on us. And so, yes, there is a certain amount of mental toughness that we need in this industry, but there also needs to be a spot where you say, you know what, this is just not the right one for me, because it will send you so sideways that then you're either not giving great service to the other people, right? Because the squeaky wheel gets the grease, or you're not prospecting or not doing the things that you need to do to keep your business moving, because you've got so much mental space and energy tied up over here that, sometimes it's not worth it.
Right. Yeah. And that mental clutter is so more important than you realize, even in your personal life or health or whatever it is, or even if your house is a clutter, for me, no, I don't like going to bed with toys laying around or the countertops not being clean. It does get to be a lot. And so, I mean, even just getting those things resolved, it takes away that mental clutter. Another thing, when I have a lot to do, is writing things down. For me, that has made such a difference, because otherwise it just stays in your head and you feel so stressed and so overwhelmed that putting it down on paper is really what's going to help me to work through those things rather than just thinking it in my own head. You do. You got to get it out. Okay. Well, Karen, we're going to kind of wrap this up a little bit, but what is one piece of advice you would give to your younger self, or maybe somebody who's just going to be getting into entrepreneurship, not just real estate, but entrepreneurship in general?
Yeah. There's this saying that comparison is the thief of joy. And we see, social media is a gift in a lot of ways, but it's also a curse, because it's very easy to look and see what this person's doing and that person's doing. And then that can really quickly make you feel like, well, I'm not doing enough. I should be doing it that way. I think the people who are the most successful in this industry are the people who are authentically themselves. Right. And when you are busy comparing yourself to what someone else is doing, and that doesn't mean that we're not always growing and trying and and whatever. But when I look back over my career and I think about the times that were the most difficult, they were the times that I was not truly aligned with who I am and how I want to do business authentically. And that changes, by the way, right? What was authentic to me 15 years ago isn't necessarily authentic to me today. And that's okay. But, the times that were the most difficult were the times that I was boxing myself in based on what I thought I had to be, what other people said I had to be, what social media was demonstrating that I needed to be. And the more you can lean into who you are authentically, you will find the people who are right for you, and your business cannot help but be successful. So, that's kind of the advice that I would give to anybody, and, also to myself.
Right. I would agree. I love that. And I'm going to just kind of play off of that a little bit, is my previous broker. I mean, there was 5, 6, 7 years ago, there was like a trend going around, like I close deals in heels. I was like, I gotta wear heels, like that's me. I need to wear dresses and I need to do all these things. No. If you see me today, I am in tennis shoes, and I usually look put together for the most part. Always, when you have those clients that you've worked with a lot, you look like you just crawled out of bed. But I usually typically look put together, but I'm usually wearing jeans or, like shorts, and I'll dress up occasionally depending on what it's for, but I'm going to be in tennis shoes because that's what I'm most comfortable with. And I believe it's because my mom grew up with growing up, my mom had horrible feet and back pain and I had surgery after surgery and fasciitis. So I really think that is the reason I've always just worn tennis shoes. And I think it's because my mom went through so much pain, surgeries because of plantar fasciitis. And I was like, nope, it's gonna be me. So I am wearing tennis shoes. I don't close deals in heels. I close them in tennis shoes. So Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much, Karen, for being here. You have a book, right? Where can people purchase that book, and what was it called again?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So Empowering Women in Real Estate, it is a collection of short stories from 10 years of our Empowering Women in Real Estate community, because I literally write there every day. And so you can find it on Amazon. It is on Kindle and paperback edition. Instagram is one of my favorite places to connect with people. I'm at karen.w.cooper. There is actually a link to get my book directly from me. Right there in my Instagram profile. And then, of course, if any of your listeners are not already a part of our Empowering Women in Real Estate community, we'd love to have them come join. We're over 39,000 women in the real estate industry, and you can just search for us on Facebook.
And that was called, what was it again?
Empowering Women in Real Estate.
Empowering Women in Real Estate. Okay, awesome. Well, I'll definitely be joining that. So look for my joining. Is it a join, or do you have to
You'll have to answer a couple questions just to make sure that you're not a bot, but otherwise, no problem getting you in.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I appreciate Karen, and you have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much.
And that wraps up another inspiring episode of the Real Moms Podcast. A huge thank you to our incredible guests for sharing their story and insights today. If you found value in today's conversation, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And hey, sharing is caring, right? Share this podcast with your fellow mompreneurs, friends, and anyone who you feel could use a dose of inspiration. Share it on your social media as well. But most importantly, if you found this episode helpful, please leave me a 5-star review. This helps get our information out to those who have never heard or seen us before. Are you feeling inspired and you're sure that you could add some value to the podcast? Shoot me a message and let's talk. We love hearing from you. So connect with us on social media. Tag me at Shae J Spitz. That's ShaeJSpitz. And share your thoughts and takeaways, or even suggest topics you'd like to have us explore more in the future episodes. Remember, you're not alone on this journey. Your resilience is your strength, and your pursuit of abundant living is truly remarkable. As always, keep thriving, keep growing, and keep embracing the beautiful chaos of being a mompreneur. Until next time, take care, stay real, and keep living abundantly.